Good morning. Would members of the Infrastructure and Environment Committee please report to Committee Room 1 for quorum? Good morning. Would members of the Infrastructure and Environment Committee please report to Committee Room 1 for quorum?
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome to meeting 4 of the Infrastructure and Environment Committee. Welcome to the members of the committee, to other members of council in attendance, we have none, and to the members of the public for attending today. For those of you in the room with us, the screen at the back of the room provides real-time updates concerning where we are at in the agenda and what's coming up next. You can also follow the agenda and debate on your computer, tablet, or smartphone at www.toronto.ca/council. This next part is actually very touching for me. This is the first time that I've had the ability to read the land acknowledgement here, and it's especially special to me because of my great-grandmother's ancestry. So I'm very delighted that this is the first time I get to read this here at City Council. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Moving on to the agenda, are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to call for confirmation of the minutes. Somebody move. Councillor Layton, do I need a seconder? Nope. Okay, great. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have a speakers list that has been circulated, and we do have a few items that have deputations, and we'll do a run-through of the agenda. So item 4.1, plans for the historic Mimico train station update.
I'll move the staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Carries. Item 4.2, construction staging area, Broadway Avenue. Any holds?
Oh, I'll again move the staff recommendations.
Okay, Councillor Layton is moving staff recommendations. All those in favor? Anyone? 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 All those opposed? Carries. Item 4.3, Metrolinx Finch West Light Rail Transit, construction staging areas, lane closures, and extension of temporary delegation for long-term road closures.
The councillor that would probably be interested isn't here.
Is he on his way? We had.
So why don't we hold it? Can we
It's
hold
in. It's not in his ward though. It's
No?
it's all in Ward 1. Where
Well, we can hold it. We can do it at the end.
Just see if he is on his way.
Okay. Item 4.4, we have to hold for deputations. Item 4.5, proposed regulatory framework for scooters, cargo, e-assist cycles, also holding for deputations. And then there is new items, so I would like to move on behalf of Councillor Pasternak. Can I borrow yours to read? Sure. The strategy for future solid waste management processing material recovery facility service contracts. So I'd like to move to add that to the agenda. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carries. Is there any other business to add to the agenda?
Stole one.
Nope. Seeing none, we can move to item 4.4. Okay, so item 4.4 has, I think, 13 deputations right now, and they each have 5 minutes each, and they will be timed, and this is my first time chairing a meeting, so I will be very strict, and your time will stop at 5. And so up first is Priyanka Vittal. Yeah, I don't have to turn.
Hi. Let me know when I'm starting. My timer's on? Okay, great. My name is Priyanka Vittal, and I'm a lawyer and a resident of Toronto. I know you're fully aware of the climate impacts that Toronto faces and could face in the future, how flooding will critically affect our housing, infrastructure, and transit systems, and how rising temperatures will affect our ability to breathe, our health, and the exacerbation and spread of diseases. Some of these impacts have already begun. Even last year and earlier this year, flooding and water knocked out electricity in residential buildings in the East End and displaced hundreds of people. Issues like housing and affordability are already major issues for the city, so it's painful to imagine it getting worse as a result of climate change. Toronto's resilience to deal with climate, public health, and housing has been diminished by the provincial government. They've cut $1 billion of public health funding. And recently, 50% of the funding for regional flood control programs, at a time when once-in-a-century floods are overwhelming towns across the country. In a short time, the government has killed the cap-and-trade program, renewable energy projects, and is actively using tax dollars to fight against carbon pricing. Even yesterday, the Premier was a few hours away from Toronto in Bracebridge, where it declared a state of emergency due to flooding. The Premier said the province is 100% behind the Bracebridge community, but what does that mean when his government has cut funding to flood prevention and their water levels are expected to rise more than they ever have in a century? Sometimes these climate impacts seem distant and vague until they actually happen in our communities, and we're starting to see that. This political context underscores the need for municipal leadership on climate change. Yes, we need to continue to pressure provincial and federal governments, but we also need industry to pay its fair share and be held accountable for the role they have created in the climate crisis. There's a great opportunity for the City of Toronto to boldly create its own initiatives to protect the people who live here from climate change. One of the requests the City is considering through this motion today is to explore compensation for the cost of climate change, and that through litigation. In addition to policy action, litigation is an important tool for seeking compensation and liability. Communities have a right to hold accountability for the costs of climate change. Right now, around the globe, citizens and communities and governments are taking legal action against big polluters, asking them to pay their fair share for the damage they've caused. And this has been called climate litigation, and this wave and momentum of litigation is gathering momentum. Here in Canada, the legal system has tools for holding these companies accountable for misleading the public about the risks of their products or the availability of alternative solutions. These companies have funneled millions of dollars into decade-long campaigns to cast doubt on climate science in order to delay policies that reduce the demand for their products. This record and delay has increased the damages and costs we're experiencing now. So it's unfair to see these polluters not pay their fair share when taxpayers have to do that job. Polluters themselves have started paying attention to these types of lawsuits and have identified them as risks to shareholders. Even the law firms that represent these polluters have perked up and started writing commentary on these lawsuits, signaling that Canada is a fertile ground for these sort of suits. The reason why they're paying attention is because these cases are growing in their ambitiousness and their effectiveness, and they could actually be held financially accountable and accountable through other means in the legal system. So these lawsuits are being taken seriously by polluters, and so should the City of Toronto. Finally, in approving the motion to explore these options for accountability, the City will have the opportunity to study cases in other jurisdictions, learn what's working and what isn't, what are the best options for the basis of these lawsuits, which polluters should be held accountable and at what cost, and whether it makes financial sense for the City to pursue. I really think it's important that the City take its time in weighing these legal options and make this very important decision carefully. Toronto should be at the forefront of climate litigation and accountability in order to recoup the costs that Toronto will inevitably face. Thank you. Yes, oh, sorry, any questions?
There's been a comparison drawn to the tobacco lawsuits of, I don't even know when they were initiated, but it was
Since the 1950s.
Since the 1950s. Do you know if there were claims that those lawsuits shouldn't proceed on a legal basis?
No, those lawsuits have been going on since the 1950s, and there were no, the industry fought them, and earlier on they denied their accountability and would even say that smoking didn't cause cancer until it became inevitable and obvious that they did. And as soon as they found out that they were losing these lawsuits, that the legal system held up the claims against them, they started settling. So the payouts from, or they would win the case, plaintiffs started winning those cases. So it's a similar parallel we can draw here, except in this case, the law has already advanced enough through tobacco litigation to have crossed a lot of those barriers that you would face initially.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Keith Stewart with Greenpeace Canada.
I'm just going to give a briefing note.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Keith Stewart. I work on climate change with Greenpeace Canada. I also teach a course on energy and environmental policy at the University of Toronto. Greenpeace strongly urges you to support this motion. The core of the argument of why we think this is a good idea is in the briefing note I've shared, but to summarize first, climate change is impacting Toronto now, and it's going to get worse. How much worse depends on how quickly we transition off of fossil fuels and how quickly we make our communities more resilient to the climate impacts that cannot be avoided. Secondly, dealing with climate change is expensive. We've already heard about the 2013 storm where people had to be evacuated from GO trains by boat. It also, $940 million in insured damages, cost the city $65 million, but a lot of damages aren't insured. There are a lot of people in this community who don't have the type of insurance, and in many places, you are no longer able to get flood insurance. Asking staff to report back on the long-term costs of climate change and options to finance those costs is, I would submit, the only responsible option. Third, a few big polluters are responsible for the lion's share of greenhouse gas emissions. Peer-reviewed research shows that the largest 25 fossil fuel producers are responsible for the majority of emissions since 1988. That was the year the Toronto conference was held. It was the first global recognition that climate change was a global problem and ultimately led to the 1992 UN treaty. Fourth, oil companies like Exxon have known that burning fossil fuels would lead to climate change for at least 50 years. Exxon was actually the leader in climate science in the 1970s. Rather than warn the public about the danger, these companies spent millions on public relations campaigns to cast doubt on the science and delay the transition off of fossil fuels. At the very same time that they were publicly stating that climate science was too uncertain for governments to act, they were actually redesigning and rebuilding their offshore drilling platforms to be higher in anticipation of rising seas and stronger storms. Fifth, the history of tobacco, asbestos, and other hazardous products shows that companies who mislead the public, the market, or the government about the risks of their products or the availability of safer alternatives can face substantial legal liability. Big oil is not above the law. I'd now like to address a couple of the counter-arguments I've heard since this motion was first made public. One is that time and money for a court case would be better spent on other actions. Perhaps. I doubt that, but perhaps. The staff report can help inform that decision, and staff can compare notes with the many other Canadian and US cities that are already undertaking or contemplating similar legal action. Another argument is that when it comes to fighting climate change, we should focus on politicians, not courts. Why not do both? I would submit that we don't actually have to choose between suing the polluters who have delayed action on climate change and pressuring those politicians who have allowed those delays. Litigation and political pressure work best when done in concert. For example, some US oil companies, including ExxonMobil, are finally supporting carbon pricing in theory in the US, although they still spend millions of dollars on political campaigns to block any specific initiative to bring in a carbon tax. What most people don't know, however, is that these companies' support for a carbon tax is contingent on the companies being granted immunity from the climate liability lawsuits like the ones launched by New York, San Francisco, and Baltimore. Oil company reports to their shareholders now routinely include a warning that they face lawsuits over their liability for climate change, and this is already sending a powerful signal to investors about the level of risk in fossil fuel investments relative to renewables. Oil companies' decades-long campaign to cast doubt on climate science in order to delay action by governments was modeled on the earlier campaign by tobacco companies to deny that smoking caused cancer. The climate denial campaigns even employed the same public relations companies and the same so-called experts as tobacco to what they called manufacture doubt. Big Tobacco ultimately had to pay over $200 billion in the US to cover some of the healthcare costs of treating smokers. Here in Ontario, tobacco companies are currently being sued by the Government of Ontario for $50 billion to cover healthcare costs. Tobacco companies also had their ability to advertise and lobby governments severely restricted. Greenpeace believes that big oil should face comparable consequences for their campaign of climate denial. The hard truth is that we will all pay a heavy price for climate change, both in damages and to rebuild infrastructure to better protect ourselves against extreme weather. No one is saying that oil companies should pay all of the costs. Councillor Layton's motion simply asks staff to assess what those costs are to Toronto.
Can you wrap up?
And to present council with options for making big polluters pay their fair share.
Thank you. Questions, Councillor Cole?
Yeah, just about cost. Do you think we should try and itemize or try and get a sort of a macro number in terms of the cost borne by individuals, like the homeowners who get their basements flooded or have to basically put in the backflow valves? And I know we have a program. So is there any way we think we can get those costs somehow itemized to the taxpayer?
Yeah, so I think there's the cost to people in Toronto, things like flooded basements. There's also the cost to the infrastructure when, like, the subway gets flooded, or the GO train, or roads get washed away. And I think, you know, getting a big picture look at that is going to be challenging, but there's actually a report coming to Executive Council soon on developing a resiliency strategy for the City of Toronto. My understanding is it won't actually have cost figures associated with that, but I think that actually would be a good place to start. To take that report, which looks at big picture, how do we make Toronto more resilient to climate change and other threats? And say, okay, well, what are the future costs to this government, to the city? How are we going to pay for that? Because prevention is cheaper than cure, but prevention is politically more difficult than cure. So, you know, the provincial government just cut funding to conservation authorities by 50% for flood control. Yet the Premier was in Bracebridge yesterday saying, we're going to be here for you. It's actually a whole lot cheaper to try and prevent floods or plan for them than to clean up afterwards. But you get your picture cutting a ribbon on one, not the other.
Yeah, another question I had in terms of cost. I know in the past, when there was flooded basements, you know, people would, you know, Councillor Peruzza knows this, he's dealt with flooded basements there in North York for years. And so the basements would flood, they would, you know, pump it out, get rid of the water, and it would cost you maybe a couple $1,000. But then in about 1990 or so, we discovered this thing called mold. We didn't even know, we lived in moldy basements for decades. We didn't know that it was basically causing all kinds of serious health issues. So then now when your basement floods, it's not good enough just to pump out the water. You got to rip out the drywall. You got to take out the carpets, tiles, everything, because that mold from floods gets into the walls, into the foundation of the house. So the costs all of a sudden from, you know, $1,000 to clean up a basement now went up. I was just wondering, has anybody done any cost of mold cleanup as a result of this flooding that is happening on a more frequent basis?
So the Insurance Bureau of Canada, who this is literally their business, estimate a flooded basement costs about $40,000.
Wow, 40. Did you hear that, Councillor Peruzza? It used to be a couple thousand.
And I think one of the big challenges we're facing with climate change is that houses that didn't used to flood are going to flood, and those people aren't prepared. Like, I've been amazed, both the Premier of Quebec and the Premier of New Brunswick in the last week have said, you know, some of these homes, we're going to have to make people move because the flooding in New Brunswick, the flooding's happened in Quebec. You know, what used to be, you know, New Brunswick's had two, you know, one chance in 100 years floods in a row, last year and this year. So, and here in Toronto, I think we're going to face the same thing. You know, there's near the river ravines, there's a bunch of homes that used to flood. There's going to be a lot more. And these types of intense rainfalls that we see are going to become more frequent. They're going to become stronger. Houses that didn't used to flood are going to flood. And we're actually going to have to rebuild our stormwater management systems to be ready for that. And that, as you guys know better than me, is not cheap.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'll even time myself. There we go. So your first point about the lawsuits, that was a point that I had raised as well, that I feel like I don't want lawyers to be the ones that get rich in this process. But I think there's another concern I have that wasn't in your list. And do you feel that this erodes in any way my personal responsibility? Because I have used fossil fuels. All Canadians have used fossil fuels. And do you feel that this erodes our responsibility as contributors to that problem in any way?
We all bear some responsibility, however, some are more responsible than others. And the companies that spent And they did spend millions of dollars. It's well documented. It's documented in the various court cases in the US, but also by investigative journalism from the LA Times and Columbia School of Journalism, amongst others. They were running those campaigns to try and muddy the waters, to delay action. And similar in the tobacco case, you know, they should pay a cost for that. They should pay their fair share. What that fair share would be determined by the courts. We're all going to pay for climate change. It's just that some of the people who did the most to cause it shouldn't get out of paying their fair share.
And as a follow-up, by looking at what other cities are doing, would we, through this process, be able to look at what they found through discovery and what precedences are there, and also what potentials there are for things like class action lawsuits? Would that come forward through this report, do you think, back to us?
Yeah, I think the process underway in the U.S., they're sort of, it's always a long process because things get trying to move from one court to another, et cetera. But what happened in the tobacco case was there was legal cases, you got discovery, you got documents which showed internally what the companies were saying and how it was very different from what they were saying publicly. And that was at the core of the sort of how they were held particularly liable, because it wasn't just that smoking caused cancer. They knew it caused cancer, and yet were publicly saying something else. And so that kind of discovery then got transferred to so when one case found some documents, that then got shared in every other document. There's actually a national repository with millions of documents from the tobacco industry in the US, which was then sort of kind of common, you know, open sourced for all legal cases. And I suspect it will be the same situation with the wave of climate litigation that my colleague Priyanka Vital identified. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Sarah Barthel. Sarah? No? Okay. After that is Helia Sehatpour. You have 5 minutes.
Hello. I would like to thank the members of the committee for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Helia Sehatpour. I live in Willowdale, Ward 18, and have lived there for the past 14 years. Willowdale is considered a suburb of Toronto. A large number of members in my community are families, including many immigrant families who have moved to Toronto from all over the world. My community has built houses, businesses, and so much more in this city. As the daughter of an immigrant family, I know what it looks like to build a brand new life in a whole new place. It takes courage, hard work, and it's insanely difficult. Yet it all seems worth it for Toronto, a city that promises support, protection, progress, and growth. However, all of these qualities are under the threat of climate change. Toronto will no longer be able to commit to its promises. According to a report by the Clean Air Partnership from almost 14 years ago when I first came to Canada, Toronto's infrastructure systems will be greatly affected by extreme weather. With the increasing emissions of CO2 and a lack of enough green spaces to make up for it, our urban landscape makes it easy to trap and release heat. Warm weather holds more moisture, leading to frequent and extreme weather events. Extreme weather can disrupt all businesses and social activities and affect our physical and mental health. Our water, modes of transportation, and energy supply will be disturbed and disrupted. Climate change-related events threaten Toronto's economy. Disruptions to businesses due to extreme weather are going to cost us. Toronto accounts for almost 1/5 of Canada's GDP. Keeping Toronto resilient to climate change is not only important to our city, but to Canada as a whole. There's no doubt that Toronto will need to brace itself for climate change. Dealing with climate impacts is expensive and will be increasing costs in coming years. We will need to implement resilient infrastructure and account for repairs. Insurance companies will not be covering all the damages. Members of my community who shed sweat to maintain their families' livelihoods will not be able to afford these expenses. So how much will protection and resiliency cost us? And who will pay for it? Will it be the people of Toronto who are already struggling? For decades, oil companies knowingly yet deceitfully contributed to the rising CO2 emissions and climate change. Recent studies suggest that oil companies are releasing almost 68% more CO2 than they report. Canada's climate is warming twice as fast as the rest of the globe. Oil companies should be responsible for paying their fair share of their contribution to damages incurred to our city, our people, and our lives. It is vital to look into the long-term cost of climate change to our city. You have the resources, the contacts, and the ability to look into this matter as our elected representatives. I urge you to vote in favor of looking to the long-term cost of climate change to Toronto and avenues through which this cost can be covered. Take the first step towards protecting Toronto. Protect the people who have chosen this city as their home and all that they have built. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Our next speaker is Aviva Gail Bunsell. Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Okay. Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak here. My name is Aviva. I'm 18 years old and live in Ward 14, Toronto Danforth. I voted for the first time in this past election, and it was really exciting. I'm a part of the Fridays for Future movement here in Toronto. If you don't know, Fridays for Future is the action sparked by the Swedish activist Greta Thunberg. Our next school strike is happening May 3rd at Queen's Park. I'm here today because I'm inspired by Greta and the many more youth environmental activists all around the world. I want to show my support of this motion, of pursuing compensation for the cost of climate change to the City of Toronto, and to say some of what is on my mind about the crisis we are in. I remember very clearly the first time I learned about climate change. I was sitting in my classroom in grade 4, and my teacher said, "Look out the window. You see the snow falling and the sun shining. It's a nice winter day, and everything looks okay. But it is not. Our Earth is in crisis." And at the time, from what I remember, I was shocked and scared and wondering what was being done. What could I do to help? And was it too late? I'm still asking the same questions 9 years later. The only thing I now know is that it is not too late, but we need to take this seriously, and we need to act now. I ask that you support this motion because at the moment, we do not know the whole detailed impact climate change has had on Toronto. It is important to hold fossil fuel companies and major polluters accountable for putting profit and money over the lives of future generations. It is especially disturbing if, like with the tobacco industry, they knew about the negative impacts, but carried on anyways. If they can pay some of the price, then maybe the City of Toronto could focus more money and resources on projects which could help the Earth. And the problem isn't only the fossil fuel companies, but the great dependence our society has on fossil fuels. We need to make a more sustainable system immediately, and this will take everybody, and all governments, taking action and prioritizing the environment. This is a great opportunity for Toronto and Canada to become a leader on making real sustainable solutions. And I ask you, as the Infrastructure and Environment Committee, to prioritize taking action on climate change. If I have children, or maybe grandchildren, I want to be able to tell them a story. I want the story to say something like, there was this huge problem threatening all of humanity, but we came together and we found our courage and we took action. It was difficult, but we did it, and you don't have to worry. We as humans are the authors of this story right now, and the plot is up to us every day. The future depends on us. Thank you. So, yeah.
Get you to hold, so somebody has just left, so we've lost quorum for a minute until they come back. The problem is
Oh, no. Oh, no, it's all good.
Are there any questions for this lovely deputant who is going to be late for school? Yes.
And just keep it up because us more mature people need your enthusiasm to keep us going. So please keep pushing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
And is Anton Tabbins?
Hello, all. Thank you for having me. I'll get right into it. I'm a lawyer called to the Bar of Ontario. I've been working on environmental law since 2012, and climate change work has been something I've been doing throughout that time. I'm now a senior advisor at Mantle, which is a climate change consultancy based in Toronto. And as part of my job, I track climate change, climate liability, and impacts to municipalities from climate change. And just full disclosure, I have been part of a lawsuit against an oil major, but it was for environmental contamination not related to climate impacts. So today I'll be just quickly discussing other municipal climate litigation and some Toronto-centric items, and if I repeat anything that the folks from Greenpeace said, I apologize in advance. This is a huge problem. The World Economic Forum Global Risk Report for 2018 identified 3 of the top 5 global risks to business and economies as climate-related, and these risks obviously apply to municipalities as well. And the Insurance Bureau of Canada estimated that Canadian governments paid approximately $5.7 billion for uninsured damages caused by extreme weather events in 2018. So increasing mitigation and adaptation measures are essential. And the question is, how will municipalities pay for these adaptation measures? It could be argued that looking at producer liability when it comes to fossil fuels is part of a multi-pronged approach to addressing climate leadership. And this doesn't detract from other measures that the city may be taking. It's an addition. So seeking some restitution from oil majors is not a radical course of action. It's actually being pursued by multiple jurisdictions in North America, I know, as you know. Numerous municipalities in the US have examined these issues and have decided that one course of action, alongside a suite of others, is to litigate against major fossil fuel companies. These municipalities include San Francisco, Oakland, Santa Cruz, New York City, the city of Richmond, Boulder, Colorado, and Baltimore, as well as a number of counties in California, for example, San Mateo, San Marin County, and Santa Cruz County. Counties in Colorado, including Boulder County and San Miguel County, and King County in Washington, which is the home to Seattle. The state of Rhode Island has also sued oil majors. In California, damages are being sought in the billions for climate change-related damages, mostly for adaptation measures, to help with adaptation measures, such as constructing seawalls and protecting coastal property. New York City is claiming for billions of dollars that the city will spend to protect itself and residents from the impacts of climate change. And Washington is suing over infrastructure, health, and environmental costs related to climate change. As Councillor McKelvey's question earlier, going to that, whether we can take some information from US lawsuits, in the San Francisco lawsuit, it has already been agreed that fossil fuels have led to global warming and ocean rise. This is not something that will be relitigated. That can be res judicata used in Canada as well. It's not under consideration anymore. Although San Francisco was not successful at first instance, the judge did state that the court fully accepts the vast scientific consensus that the combustion of fossil fuels has materially increased atmospheric carbon dioxide levels, which in turn has increased the median temperature of the planet and accelerated sea level rise. So there are certain things that have been set out that won't be relitigated. It also apportioned a certain amount of GHG emissions to 5 of the largest fossil fuel companies on the planet, and found that they were collectively responsible for over 11% of all carbon dioxide and methane pollution since the Industrial Revolution. So there is some way to apportion at least part of the damages and liabilities to certain actors. There have also been lawsuits in Canada, cities are thinking of bringing lawsuits in Canada. For example, the city of Victoria, along with a number of other BC municipalities, is considering a class action lawsuit against fossil fuel companies for the costs associated with climate change. They passed a resolution in January 2019 to support filing a class action lawsuit to, quote, recover costs from climate change, arising from climate change. And then when it comes to damages, just thinking of the direct impacts to Toronto, the 2013 storm alone and the flooding resulting from that resulted in approximately $850 million in damages to Toronto. Climate change will also lead to warmer summers and poorer quality. This is from the National Roundtable on Environment and Economy, a study that was set out in 2011. For Toronto alone, these costs could be between $3 million and $11 million per year in the years going forward. And this isn't just financial. A recent Environmental Commissioner of Ontario report from 2018 found that extreme heat contributes to approximately 120 deaths in the city in Toronto every year. Just a quote. Yeah, sure. I think that's fine for now. Sorry to run over time. My apologies. No, that's fine. Okay.
Are there any questions for Deputy? Okay. Yeah, Councilor Perusa.
Thank you so much for coming. If you have anything in writing that you'd like to submit to the committee, so that we continue to have a record of it, that would be great.
Okay.
So if you have anything there that you want to
My pleasure.
the clerks are here, all right?
Okay. I brought a copy, so.
And if I need to move a motion to that effect, I'll do that. That we receive as deputation, and if you'd like to. Pardon? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Is Jay Scott?
Good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity to depute this evening. This is a very important issue and close to my heart. And I'm here to represent the non-human species, which seem to have been left a little bit out of the comments that I've heard so far. The world is burning up. Many insect pollinators are disappearing in unprecedented numbers, almost as quickly as the ice caps. Because this terrifies me, I'm here to ask this council to push back against imminent and irreversible climate destruction wherever it can. We've been warned that we have only a couple of years to initiate the measures to prevent this from happening by 2025. Climate change, habitat destruction, pesticide use, and other damaging agricultural and recreational practices have already impacted insects to an alarming extent, even to the frightening loss of significant numbers of important pollinators. A major culprit, according to the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America, is a warming climate. If we cannot get industries to self-regulate, then it is up to governments at every level to legislate the changes we need to prevent any further increase in the temperature of the planet. This is where Toronto Council can play a critical part in setting a standard that we'd like to see across the province. First of all, please don't be as cautious as Deaf Canada, which hasn't totally banned the use of the neonicotinoids clothianidin, imidacloprid, and thiamexothum. Oh dear, trouble there. Chemicals that will still be allowed to be coated on canola and cereal seeds before they are planted, and on greenhouse vegetables. Please do your part to enact sweeping bans to deny the use of any of these chemicals for any purpose in our city, and work as hard as you can to bring in this ban at provincial and federal levels. Every single act we can do to stop a further die-off of bees and other insects will help preserve the future health of these tiny, irreplaceable agents that ensure life for all the rest. To protect the environment even further, what can be done to mandate a greater area of green space around new developments in the city? Could Council consider expanded minimum green space and tree planting each time a permit to build is granted? Also, when the city allows parking pads, would it please consider mandating that every new parking pad must be permeable and is not a concrete or asphalt slab? Another way in which to stop the drain on the waste management budget would be to ban the single-use plastic bag. If the city is timid about doing this, then mandate that every single plastic bag, no matter how small, cost $1, a fee that would be collected by merchants, and that at least 75% of that charge be returned to the city coffers to offset the cost to deal with the waste that plastic creates. Another approach to deal with climate change is to assess what a warming climate costs Toronto and go after the fossil fuel companies to cover those expenses. Toronto is always short of cash, and there is a greater amount of investment that needs to be made in mitigation. The fossil fuel companies should be accountable for all the negative impacts on health and the environment that their use entails. Fully and immediately implementing the recommendations of Transform TO would also help deal with rising temperatures. In the same vein, please consider raising property taxes to cover increased funding for the TTC so that residents will opt to use transit rather than continuing to drive. This would facilitate the full funding of the TTC's own ridership growth strategy, which includes more local and express service, transit priority, and other measures to boost ridership. However, am I correct in understanding this plan is not even costed for 2019 and is not cited anywhere in this year's budget? If so, how did that happen? Please, I beg this council to be bold, to be proactive, and to work with the many, many residents who are ready to support you in this endeavor. Don't let the results of inaction in this unprecedented challenge be your legacy for future generations. Thank you.
Yes, I'm going to phrase it as a question, but it's more of a comment, and to encourage you to come back. There will be two other reports that I think will be of interest to you in the coming months. One is on single-use plastics overall. It'll likely have a component about plastic bags. Sadly, while we could implement a 5-cent fee for plastic bags, which we did about a decade ago or 15 years ago, then it was repealed 9 years ago, we weren't allowed to collect the revenue from it. Which is an interesting twist. We just weren't permitted. We're not permitted by the City of Toronto Act to collect the revenue. Although we can tax alcohol and tobacco, we can't tax plastic bags. It's a strange one. But that report will be coming back, so I'd encourage you to come back. And then finally on the Transform TO, the implementation plan for the next phase of work, because we're approaching the end of the implementation of the early strategies and moving on to the implementation, which will cost out the future strategies. And that's coming in September, Q3, September to October at some point. So I'd encourage you to come back, because we will need support to ensure that we fully fund that strategy, because it'll cost money.
Could I ask one question?
Well, you can't ask me a question, but is there anything else you'd like to know?
About textile use. Are you going to be collecting textiles? I just delivered 2 bags to H&M yesterday, but it'd be great if the city could collect textiles.
We have the general manager of solid waste in the room, and let's take that as a as commentary to the direction that he should take the recycling program.
Thank you.
Textiles.
We have to do away with polyester shirts. That's plastic. Don't
Okay,
wear
now we're going off in a really different direction.
Thank you very much.
Well, we had no jurisdiction in the area. So we had.
I'm going to call our next speaker, Astaire Van Wagner. Did I say your name right? Yes. Okay, thank you. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'm here on behalf of a group of faculty and students affiliated with the Osgoode Hall Law School Environmental Justice and Sustainability Clinic. Our aim is to contribute to the creation of law and policy that enacts principles of justice and sustainability for everyone in Toronto and in Ontario. I note that we are grateful to have an ongoing placement with City Legal, which has been a wonderful experience for our students, and we'd hope to continue in support of this work on climate change. In our assessment, there are two main reasons Toronto should consider legal action against major greenhouse gas emitters. First, Toronto is already paying for the costs of climate change, and these costs and the costs of adaptation and mitigation will increase over time. And second, climate change disproportionately impacts vulnerable groups and exacerbates existing environmental justice issues in Toronto. In our view, Toronto should not be responsible for the increasing costs of climate change, and we encourage you to take this opportunity to show leadership in addressing the major policy concerns associated with climate change. In the ongoing context of inaction at the federal and provincial levels, a focus on the role of cities in responding to climate change is appropriate and necessary. A strong role for cities is consistent with the principle of subsidiarity, which has been interpreted by our Supreme Court to mean that lawmaking and implementation are often best achieved at the local level. The Supreme Court has endorsed subsidiarity as a basis for upholding progressive and forward-looking environmental action by municipalities. We note at the outset that litigation is only one tool available to municipalities to deal with climate change, and we support exploring the possibility of litigation only as part of a broader strategy for social and environmental justice. Torontonians can't wait for a drawn-out lawsuit to work its way through the courts before action is taken, and it is not a substitute for good, climate-friendly, equitable planning. There are a range of causes of action on which climate litigation has been based in other jurisdictions. Tort law, similar to the tobacco actions such as negligence, misrepresentation, or strict liability. In property law, which is my area of expertise, public nuisance, private nuisance, and trespass, and equitable remedies such as restitution and unjust enrichment, as well as statute-based claims, things like consumer protection legislation. At this stage, it's unnecessary to determine which pathway Toronto should pursue. Indeed, the city should likely consider a combination of these causes of action and forms of accountability. But to elaborate on just one example, one of our founding members, Professor Stephen Wood, who's now at the University of British Columbia, has commented that public nuisance is particularly promising for climate change litigation in Ontario. Public nuisance is quite broad. It captures any activity which unreasonably interferes with the public's interest in questions of health, safety, morality, comfort, or convenience, including the public's use of public lands, resources, or highways, and exercise of public rights of navigation or fishing. It protects the rights of the public generally to live their lives unaffected by inconvenience, discomfort, or other forms of interference. Professor Wood has noted that few would disagree that anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions are altering the global atmosphere and negatively affecting our climate, nor that these changes will cause and are causing inconvenience or discomfort. In a case called Canadian Forest Products, the Supreme Court has confirmed that public nuisance could be used to enforce public rights in respect of the environment. Secondly, establishing causation has been an issue in climate change, as a plaintiff must prove the defendant caused or contributed to harm in question. This has served as a barrier in earlier U.S. litigation. However, public nuisance has particular promise in relation to this, and environmental lawyer Andrew Gage has argued that the causation issue can be simplified in that context by understanding damage to the health of the global atmosphere as the nuisance in question, and shifting the causation issue from the harms caused by a particular climate-related event to the defendant's emissions, to proving the defendant impacted the natural state of the atmosphere. In addition, reports by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change are now being accepted as evidence by courts and being given significant weight in other jurisdictions. This is a big step forward in terms of quantifying the harms, and we now also have further data on quantifying the emissions from carbon majors and linking them to climate change. In the context of Toronto, the 3 extreme weather events that are most likely to occur are significant flooding, winter ice storms, and heat waves. These costs can be measured and are easily quantifiable for the purposes of litigation. We've already heard many of these examples, and I have more in the detailed written submission that I have provided. I would also note, just on the environmental justice front, that there is ample research to document the ways in which race, gender, ability, socioeconomic status affect the vulnerability of individuals to disaster. And we would urge that an environmental justice lens be brought to any litigation.
Thank you very much. I hadn't thought that there was more than one significant legal battle that we could be entering in here. So the 3 that you listed were the tort law around negligence, the property law piece around public nuisance. I'm just repeating it for the benefit of maybe some of our solicitors watching that have to write this report. And then the third one I didn't understand. It just ran through too quickly, but it wasn't.
Yeah, it's a very legal jargony sort of, but the
Jargon for us, please.
equitable remedies, so things like unjust enrichment, so the fact that the carbon producers have been enriched at the expense of the population of Toronto, and particularly vulnerable groups who will feel the impact of climate change. But equitable remedies are just a way that the courts have developed over time their jurisdiction to account for making things right, doing things that ought to be done, even when the common law has confined us in ways that have worked against litigants.
That was pretty jargony.
Sorry.
I'm going to encourage you to pass on that jargony to those that can interpret the jargony, and it sounds like you have. If I've learned one thing, though, it's that municipal lawyers are very risk averse. And they tend, and oddly enough, not the one that seems to be assigned to this file. He's a bit of a troublemaker, which is good in this case. But we will need the support and guidance from, I guess it's the Upper Canada Law Society, those that are on the front line of this. I think it would be really useful for your continued involvement and the group that you're representing from Osgoode Hall to continue to send your thoughts to the city solicitor as they contemplate what the city should do. I'd add that I think it's worthwhile, and I've identified some groups in the US that are working on this, and if you haven't, reaching out to them for some advice. They are a wealth of information, and they are so happy to share it. My understanding is it's 2 large law firms that are doing all of the work at relatively little cost in the United States, partly because the payoff would be if the lawsuit is successful, or lawsuits are successful, but they are enormously generous with their information. Can you, just on another point, just because I want to be able to explain it better,
Sure.
The principle of subsidiarity, can you explain that again? You did it right at the beginning, and I heard your definition. It's really important to understand if you're in municipal governance, just the importance of that. It's a terrible term because I don't think anyone knows what it actually means. But can you just explore for like a minute? Sure. What it means?
Absolutely. So the way that the Supreme Court has interpreted it, which is the way that's probably the most helpful to focus on for the purposes of litigation, is that there's a benefit to thinking about lawmaking and implementation at the local level, because the local level understands, the local levels of government understands best how citizens are affected by particular harms, such as climate change. In the example of the City of Toronto, the city understands better than other levels of government because you get the phone calls, you get the complaints about flooded basements, about moldy houses, about what's happening to our ravines. You are listening to those concerns and trying to respond to them. But also the local levels understand what are distinctive about our communities. So not just the city of Toronto, but the particular wards that you work with. I like to think of municipal governance as place-based governance. You spend time understanding your neighborhoods that you represent and the communities that are within them. And that brings a very specific and important kind of knowledge to policy making and decision making. Is that helpful?
That's very helpful. And when you're giving a different definition like that, if you look at the tension right now that exists between in policymaking around transit, around public health, around pretty much everything we deal with the province around,
Yeah.
I think that they need a good lesson in the principle of subsidiarity.
I couldn't agree more.
And we need a new frame for it.
Group of residents that have been impacted by flooding, which there are pockets in Toronto that get habitually hit by these extreme weather events. Could they launch a class action lawsuit? Has anyone done that in any other jurisdiction where a group of residents would essentially launch a class action lawsuit against maybe one of the fossil fuel conglomerates, and has that been done, or is that possible? Rather than, because they may sue the city or whatever it is, but could they actually launch a suit against one of these big polluters?
Theoretically, yes. A lot of the individual actions have been against governments to hold them account, but there are a couple of US examples where either groups of people, so in one case an indigenous group in Alaska, or an individual in a US state had attempted to hold the greenhouse gas emitters and producers to account. They were quite early climate change lawsuits and were not successful. They were based largely on the tort grounds, and they had issues around causation. But the science and the attitude of the courts has progressed since the time that those were brought. And personally, this is my bias because I'm a property law professor, I think there may be more promise in the property law, or at least equal promise in looking at the property law-based ones, particularly when you look at damage to property that's been caused. It's a logical way to go about it, not just private property, but also public property. So there's public nuisance, there's private nuisance, and there's trespass. And in my written submission, I've linked, in each one of those categories, I've linked examples from the US litigation that are using those particular grounds. So we can explore what they're using, what's been successful in those circumstances, and learn from that.
Yeah, for instance, maybe the property owners on Ward's Island, or people on the banks of the Humber River or the Don River, if they see the water level is rising and really destroying the enjoyment of their property and then causing flooding in their homes, they could possibly investigate launching a class action lawsuit.
We have a very useful post on our clinic blog that talks in some more detail about this, which I'm happy to forward, but it's based on my colleague Steppenwood's presentation to the Ontario Bar Association that talks specifically about how public nuisance, the example of the ground that I talked about, is dealt with in our Environmental Bill of Rights in Ontario, and some of the barriers to bringing that kind of litigation have been lessened for public nuisance grounds. So it is a particularly good example for the kind of individual lawsuit that you're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for the deputant? Okay, thank you for coming in. Our next speaker is Romel Belosilo. Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Committee Chair, Councillor James Pasternak, and members of Infrastructure and Environment Committee, fellow presenters, and ladies and gentlemen, good morning. First, I would like to thank this committee for including this item on your agenda today and for giving me this opportunity to speak. My name is Romel Belosilo, and I'm current resident of Toronto. I moved to Canada about 7 years ago, And like many other immigrants, I'm seeking for better opportunity and a better future. I always look up to Canadians and their strong relationship with the environment. And I'm a huge environmentalist myself, so that actually is a big factor in my decision to stay and move here for good. Climate change has greatly affected all of us, whichever part of the world we live in. The signs are hard to ignore. It is real. It is happening. Believe me, I've seen it firsthand in my home country, the Philippines. And as an island nation, it is at most risk from climate change. I've seen it how it impacted the lives of the Filipinos. People have lost everything, their homes, their livelihood, in worst cases, their lives. And for a country that's mostly poor, it's hard to start over and fix everything that took years to build. Filipinos are used to having hurricanes every year, but this last couple of years, it's getting stronger and stronger. Not only that, several parts of the country are also experiencing drought, severe drought, due to El Nino. These extreme weather conditions are caused by climate change. The country has absorbed increasing number of destructive natural disasters, including Typhoon Haiyan, which killed more than 6,300 Filipinos in 2013. So in 2015, the Commission on Human Rights of the Philippines launched an investigation after receiving a petition from several community and individuals. The case is seeking accountability through the human rights perspective. If the world's largest oil, gas, and coal companies are largely responsible for the climate impacts, they are therefore violating Filipinos' basic rights to life, for food, water, sanitation, adequate housing, and self-determination. Just March last year, they held their first public hearing, and the result of this investigation are expected later this year. I know that the case will be an uphill battle, but I believe the Philippines did the right thing. Meanwhile, 10 cities in the United States, including New York, San Francisco, and Baltimore, are suing fossil fuel companies for the cost of any global warming-related damages. It is about time to hold this corporation accountable for the cost of climate change. Recent investigations also show that these companies knew that burning fossil fuels would lead to climate change for 50 years, but they did not choose to warn the public and instead prevent any actions against them. So I would really thank this committee for bringing this to the table and having this discussion. This is the reason why I'm here today. If the cities in other countries are doing it, I believe it is worth exploring. Here in Toronto, we have experienced extreme weather conditions. We have been hit by floods, storms, heat waves that have caused so much damages to our homes, infrastructure, and transportation system. Climate change is impacting the city. And if this is going to be worse in the future as predicted, we must be financially prepared. We know that we could end up spending billions of dollars rebuilding from storm damage. We must also be ready to protect our communities. We are already having a huge problem with homelessness, and with the city becoming more expensive a place to live, due to high rental pricing, spending money on storm damage may mean spending less on affordable housing. Climate change will really impact the most vulnerable Torontonians. Being resilient is not enough. We need all the financial help that we can get. So please, I humbly ask this committee to support Councillor Layton's motion to have the staff report back on long-term cost implications of climate change to our city's infrastructure, and explore legal avenues to pursue compensations for these costs from big polluters. These companies have making profits from the environment and from the people and from our city, so it's just time to pay their fair share from this damages that they knew. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you for coming. Our next speaker is Hamish Wilson.
Good morning, thanks for being here. There's absolutely zero doubt that there's a horrible situation with climate change. Let's actually call it climate breakdown. That's the stage that we're at now. It used to be called global warming at the time of the Toronto target. Then it moved to climate change, and now we're at the point of climate breakdown. And there's no doubt that it is actually happening at a far more rapid pace than all of us would like. And we're not counting the synergies, and we're going down pretty quickly, unfortunately. Now, the trouble is, as we want to try and find solutions, if we're thinking of having a lawsuit against the fossil fuel companies, even though they're on the evil side in some ways, we don't have clean hands. I got into air pollution issues with the acid rain fight. That was a very important thing to try and get the U.S. to clean up their acts, well, how clean are we? We are not clean. So I think there's a great degree of hypocrisy and inaction and wrong-headed moves here on the city level that I think horribly compromise any attempt at a lawsuit, even though absolutely the oil companies and et cetera are really, really bad. So that's where I'm coming from, and here's an example of some of the challenges that this is an old cartoon, almost goes back to the Toronto target, I think. It's kind of a classic, and I haven't actually gone through how we pushed back the Toronto target and eroded the goals, but I think we almost set a level for, or an example for the federal level to ease up on actually making the goals, because, hey, it's a lot of work to make change. And I'm a hypocrite myself. I like my books, I like some other things, and one of the things that we aren't doing well at, for instance, is this sort of thing. It's a wonderful book, Towards Zero Carbon. It's got a great image that shows the global issues that we have. We can probably see Toronto, the Toronto area, very clearly up there. The trouble is, this wonderful book is printed in Hong Kong, I think it is. So the amount of energy to bring this book from Hong Kong, it's significant, as good as it is. So we're not doing very well at measuring that sort of emissions. We have to start including the shipping emissions and the embodied energy emissions of the things that we bring in. And we're not doing that. We're not counting our air travel. That's what far more pressing issue, I think, to start to include that in our greenhouse gas emissions than to have a lawsuit. 41 million passengers use Pearson each year, not including the air freight. That's a horrendous amount of emissions, I think. Where's air travel? It's not included. It's complicated, for sure. So how about a motion to do that? The other thing, well, many things, another thing that would be very helpful is to start counting our concrete usage. We don't count concrete in this city in our greenhouse gas emissions, so maybe 7% globally, because I guess we don't use any. Is that the case? No. We use an awful lot of concrete. So let's be honest about our emissions. Start counting concrete. ABCs first, the agency boards and commissions, and then overall the city level. It's a significant thing. We also could use a demolition prohibition on the grounds of embodied energy in buildings, because there's, every existing building is basically like a batch of stored oil. So demolition tends to waste it. Our transit is a mess. We should avoid that Scarborough subway extension in favor of the Eglinton East LRT, and look at the Gatineau Hydro Corridor as another option. Vehicle registration tax, please. This is another area where I think we're pretty horrible on actually getting to pushing back appropriately. This particular figure from 20-odd years ago says that every vehicle had a $2,700 per car year, annual subsidy in Vancouver, 7 times more than they subsidize transit. That's a huge amount of money. So if you make things cheap and free, well, guess what? People are going to use it. Here's another thing, going back to the Toronto target area. From the Changing Atmosphere Conference, the former City of Toronto went, oh, well, we should do something about climate change. Oh, bikes are good, so let's see what we can do for bikes. Oh, Bloor Danforth was #1. Where is the actual interest in putting a bit of bike lane on Bloor Street in Danforth now? Specifically, there's a spot in the bike plan that is also subway relief right here. That's still not done. I'd love to see a motion to actually get this done this year, and too bad Mike's left the room. He's got a lot of integrity, more so than most everybody, but...
Thank you. Your time is up.
Yes.
He's right here, too.
Yeah. Oh,
in the
okay.
room. He heard you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the deputant? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Our next
Of integrity.
deputant is Patience Evbagaru? Did I say that? Evbagaru. Good morning. Did I say that correctly?
So it's actually Ibagaru, but I mean...
Ibagaru.
you're close.
Ibagaru,
I've
okay.
heard worse, so it's okay.
Okay, thank you for coming in today, and you have 5 minutes.
All right. Okay, so, you know, I was really inspired by Lynn. I loved what you said today, mainly because I am only about 4 years older than you, but I can definitely relate to when I hear you say, oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I was really inspired by you just because, you know, I know what it means to see the differences. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Anywho, when I was in elementary school, you used to see snails, worms, all these different things on the grounds. Like literally, you couldn't, I could not walk straight without accidentally stepping on something. I haven't seen a lot of these things in a very long while. So in recent years, the City of Toronto has been hit by extreme weather. Let's remember July 2013 when we had that huge storm that caused flooding across the GTA and resulted in more than $850 million in property damages. It basically was the most expensive, I think, natural disaster in our province. The storms are actually now more powerful than they've ever been, ever before. Small towns by the coastlines warn the rest of Canada, saying they're doing what they can to protect the coastlines, but you know, they beg the rest of the Canadian government to do the same. Canada has introduced policies and spent billions of taxpayer dollars to support the continued expansion on oil and gas production, already the largest and fastest growing source of emissions in Canada. In 2001, the federal, provincial, and industry officials agreed to move Canadian refinery emissions in line with US benchmarks, a goal that still remains like not even complete 18 years like down the line. That's quite concerning, and I don't think there's an excuse. All of these toxins have been listed in the Canadian Environmental Protection Act, so what we're essentially doing is just missing action. This is a tremendous ruling for our ecosystem, the opportunity we have now to even consider taking these companies to court. And it is it's a collective responsibility for all. The key culprit behind the Canadian and US emissions gap, experts say, is less rigorous industry regulation and enforcement in Canada. We as a municipality should hold all major companies accountable. The research should be done and companies should be taken to court accordingly. We are North America's biggest city, and we should refuse to pay the price of oil companies' misbehavior. Keep in mind that it's not only insurance that will have to deal with the severe weather damage, as many people do think. As stated, I'm pretty sure all of you guys are aware, for every single dollar paid out to insurance claims for homes and businesses, IBC estimates that Canadian governments pay out $3 to recover public infrastructure damaged by severe weather. We need to limit the losses for the future. The cost of inaction is way too high. And I've heard before, and I'll repeat this, our infrastructure is indeed built for the wrong climate in the City of Toronto. The finances are just way too much. When Toronto encounters heat waves, failed electricity, more flooding, and freezing rain temperatures, it may be too late. We don't see the effects of global warming in one day. I'm pretty sure if we did, a lot of us would be scared to live, right? It doesn't happen all at once. It's a gradual process. If these companies can be a part of the problem, I believe they should also be a part of the solution. And that's why I support this motion. I ask that, City Council does consider taking these big companies, doing the research and taking them to court. Storms are, like I said, more powerful than they've ever been historically. And at a time like this, we need to really open our eyes and not stay ignorant to the fact that, as I mentioned before, the effects of global warming do not happen in one day. Whether it is today, whether it is tomorrow, whether it's 10 years from now, we're going to have to face this problem that we're having with our climate, do our research, and hold the specific companies accountable for their actions. Thank you.
Any questions, Councilor Kroll?
As a former history teacher, I just have to correct the record.
Okay.
The worst storm we've had in Toronto in, let's say, in the last century was probably Hurricane Hazel. 1954, I remember it well as a young boy living at college in Claremont. But 81 Torontonians died. The whole of the west end, the center of the storm was in the Humber Valley, and it wiped out homes. There was fire trucks flowing down the Humber River, right down, and they found some of the fire trucks right at the shores of Lake Ontario, and these were City of York fire trucks that were swept down. So as much as it's important to talk about, as you did very well, there are extreme, erratic weather events occurring in Toronto right now that are quite, let's say, out of the ordinary. I don't disagree with that, but we got to be careful in terms of the context, because the people that are trying to, let's say, determine which way they're going to go on certain issues, we have to make sure that we put things in a proper, let's say, factual context. And it's not as if I'm trying to lecture you, but but Hurricane Hazel is a good example of what you do. And then after Hurricane Hazel, what happened is we put in the Toronto Area Conservation Authority, which basically prohibited the building of homes on the floodplains of the Humber River. And so all those homes that were there was all kinds of illegal housing all along the Humber. They were forbidden, they were taken away, and to this day, that whole area on the Humber, banks of the Humber, you're not allowed to build, and there are all kinds of measures taken on Black Creek, which is a tributary of the Humber River, to ensure that in the future we could manage storms. And bringing back to what you're saying is, and I think that's what we're here to do right now, is to make sure that we prepare for future storms, hopefully not as bad as Hurricane Hazel, and that we hold people to account for what their actions are. So I just wanted to mention that in a way of the historical context of horrible Hurricane Hazel, 1954, where 81 people died.
Thank you for that.
No, thank you for listening, and again, I didn't mean to, but...
It's okay.
I think it was, did you know that Hurricane Hazel was in 1954? That was the actual question, right? Right, 'cause it was questions. Okay, any additional questions? Okay, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Betty Muir with Climate Change Toronto. No? Yes? Okay.
Good
Thank
morning.
you. You have 5 minutes.
Well, maybe I don't need it because I apologize, I don't have a formal presentation to make, but I'm here to support this motion. I don't think anything more has to be made on that motion. I think it's succinct, and I hope you're able to follow through on it. I'd also like to say I'm here in support of all the deputants. They're all saying important things, and I would say them too, but they've already been said. The only other thing I can say is that I was hoping my counselor would be here. I won't mention any names.
It's not the question time, so you don't have to answer that. Keep going.
And bring a little levity to the situation because it is very serious. And the gentleman who spoke about Hurricane Hazel, I was there too. I remember how it was. And we were very fearful, and we did lose, my parents did lose friends in that particular situation. It was an occasion that we hope will never happen again. And this is what we're working towards. And we need all the finances we can get. And if you can get them from the big oil companies, the fossil fuel makers, then that's what we hope for. Oh, gosh, only 2 minutes. I got something else, okay. Well, maybe I don't. Anyway, thank you very much. I'm going to mention also, back in my day, I had friends, kids, and we used to swim in the Humber River. And it was funny because it wasn't real water. It was kind of a little green and slimy because the hospital Humber River would dump all its waste into the river. And I remember coming home and my mother would say, "Oh, you're all wet. Where have you been?" "Oh, we've been swimming in the Humber." And I remember seeing her face go kind of green. And she said, "Well, as long as you didn't swallow the water." So, and there are a lot of situations where, Indigenous people in particular do not have decent water, and I hope that is also an issue that is being worked on. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you. Any questions for the Deputant? Oh, okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Lynn Adamson. And thank you, Lynn. I know you traded with somebody earlier who had to leave, so thank you for that. And you have 5 minutes.
I'm hoping I can connect to this slide.
That's
Put that in there. There it is.
Lynn Adamson.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I knew from the old days.
Beginning. Thank you. Pardon? You know, I live on Vaughan at Oakwood. That's where I am now. Yes. Downtown. Yes, but I'm up in that area now. Thank you. Okay, that's right. That's right. Okay, so I just wanted to say that I'm speaking today on behalf of Climate Fast. I'm co-chair of that organization, and also as a parent, a grandparent, and a resident of Toronto since 1978. Our group, Climate Fast, has worked since 2012 to focus attention on the urgency of climate action. And first we worked at the federal level from 2012 to 2015, and now since 2015, we've been supporting municipal climate action. Our program includes education. We do have education as well as the advocacy, such as lobbying and deputations, and film screenings for outreach to people. And we've even developed a People's Climate Plan for Ontario in response to the crisis that we face at Ontario. So we are meeting with MPs and MPPs around climate action. And it hurts me to know how much at risk our children are from deliberate pursuit of financial benefit at all costs. Exxon knew the cost years ago and hid the information from us. And we are also now up against a province that doesn't care and is suppressing climate action. I'm grateful that here in Toronto, we are proceeding with the important work of Transform TO. Yet we know many of those programs are not sufficiently funded in order to proceed at the pace we need to meet the carbon reduction targets we have set. It will cost a lot of money to get there. One may certainly ask, as I do, why are we not asking the fossil fuel companies to pay their share of the costs? Every bit more of CO2 we put in the atmosphere is CO2 that will have to come down. We have over 400 parts per million in the atmosphere. Let me see if I can get you'll see it on this graph here. The line is just shooting up at the right hand. That's our current level, and it's going to go higher based on the CO2 that we've been putting in the atmosphere. This is from decades ago that we're seeing this rise. Now it's going to rise even higher. We have to have ways to take the carbon down because we have to get the number under 350. We don't even really know how to do that, although we know it'll be very expensive. There are some natural methods, including tree planting and agricultural practices that can help, but we need to do so much more, and we need to keep in mind the cost for future generations that we're putting on them by leaving it to them to take this CO2 out that we have put up there, our generation. So what happens as the CO2 levels rise? You'll see that we have these options. These are our courses, right? We can let business as usual go, and that's the red part. And temperature soars out of control to 4, 5, or 6 degrees by the end of the century. And you know, my grandchildren will be alive, I hope, at the end of the century, and I don't want that to be their world. To not have that happen, to stay under 2 degrees, we've got to follow that blue path. Stop rising. That's going to be really hard to do. So we all have to get involved. We have to do that. So what are the impacts of climate inaction? Doctors have named climate change the greatest threat to human health in the 21st century. This is from a Lancet medical journal report. The Canadian Medical Association is lobbying at the federal level for action, supporting the carbon pricing and other actions because they recognize the threat to health, which includes a number of diseases, and the heat issues, the extreme weather, and there's many, which I won't get into because I'm not a doctor, but I'll carry on with impacts. This is the Finch washout, so infrastructure committee, this is something to be concerned about. The flooding, we've talked about. And then the island flooding as well. Millions of dollars were spent. Now I understand we've invested so that they won't experience it this year to the same degree, but that's what happened. And our heat is rising. So in the 2040s and 50s, it'll be 44 maximum daily temperature rather than 37, which it was last decade. And this is another one showing just how much we've got to change from our current path, which is the blue line. The Paris path is pretty much the red line, but we actually have to do much better to have a livable future. The longer we wait, this slide shows the steeper the drop. Oh gosh, how did it get to be there? So that is my grandson, my youngest one. He'll be 21 in 2040. He'll be my age, 67, in 2085. So what will the world be like for him at that age?
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Thank you for coming in.
Okay, I did put references, which are fabulous at the bottom of my thing. So if you have a chance for you or your staff to look at them, I would encourage you to do so because I learned so much from them.
Great. Thank you. Our next speaker is Sarah Barthel. Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, councillors, for letting me speak to voice my opinion and my strong support for Councillor Layton's motion. Also, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak the second time today because I was late for the first time. Sorry about that. As I said, I'm a strong supporter of this motion, and I hope you will vote in favor for it today. I think there are so many reasons why you should do that. I'd like to focus on 2 of them. I myself live in Ward 13. As you can probably hear, though, that I wasn't born in Ward 13. I was born in Germany. I came to Toronto 2 years ago, and I'm a permanent resident now. So back to the motion. I think one of the reasons why I do support this motion is that I truly believe that knowing is caring. The more Torontonians know about the consequences of climate change, and especially about the costs of climate change, the more they will act upon about the consequences, the more they will act upon or ask for actions from politicians and corporations, and that's what I'm all about. I think we need to get going and really fight this most prominent, most urgent problems of Toronto, Canada, and the world. The second thing why I like this motion so much would be, it was already mentioned beforehand, but I really want to strengthen its importance. Why should the City of Toronto and the taxpayers only pay for the consequences and the highly ever-increasing cost of climate change damages to the infrastructure? Why shouldn't those corporations that made trillions of dollars over decades, why shouldn't they also be held responsible? I think there is a really good chance of looking into options, how they can pay their fair share, and I think that's why I like the motion so much, because I think it's worthwhile looking into it. They should pay their fair share, and especially while they were knowing what they were doing, right? What their actions would be causing, and while they were fighting environmental policies or regulations. So I think it's very worthwhile to look into it. In the end, why I'm a supporter, I think Toronto is a very livable city. I've experienced it for the last 2 years while I've been living here. Toronto offers so many great programs. I experienced those as a citizen, but also as a Live Green Toronto volunteer, where I actually explain those great programs to people coming to our booth at a show. So I'm really worried that with ever-increasing costs of climate change consequences, more funds will be cut for those great programs, and I think that would make Toronto a less livable city. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the deputy? Okay, thank you. And our final, right? Rosemary, last one? Okay. Last deputy is Rosemary Boissonneau. Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. And thank you for letting me speak at the last minute. I had got my dates mixed up, and I didn't realize this was happening today till it was already started. So I rushed down from Scarborough to be here. And so my deputation isn't entirely prepared, but I do know what I want to say, and hopefully can say it in 5 minutes. And based on what I've speaking to other people, what I want to talk about hasn't been covered yet. So thank you again for letting me speak. In past, I've been speaking as a teacher, but today I'm going to speak as a student. I've taken a year off from teaching because I'm studying ecological theology at the University of St. Michael's College in a co-joint program with U of T. And just over a week ago, I was lucky to be among about 10 St. Mike's students that got to sit down with Catherine McKenna, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, and she's a St. Mike's alumna, and we were discussing the environment and climate change in the context of our fields of study. Minister McKenna urged us to continue being vocal and to continue our protests and to ramp them up. And this is because politicians on the federal level are not really leaders but followers. And she was saying, she's talked about the pipelines, and she was like, yeah, we're kind of, without saying it, she was like, keep protesting it. Well, she did say keep protesting it, so I thought that was interesting. She commended the Fridays for Future groups, as I said, pipeline protesters, all the rallies we've been having, and the Indigenous protests. But I think that if the City of Toronto follows through with this motion, it would make a very, very loud message to all of Canada, because Toronto is the financial capital of Canada. And we, as the financial capital, I think we have a moral obligation to say, look at, make the polluters pay. They're all on the stock exchange here. And if we do believe the polluter pay principle, this is our chance to put well, just our mouth where our mouth is. We're not actually putting too much money into it. We want them to give us the money to pay for, as I'm not going to go into all the reasons why the fossil fuel industry should be paying. That's already been covered. So I just really want to bring across the idea as the financial capital of Canada, how this could be a very powerful message to all of Canada, and we can explain that, you know, it's not about the oil industry guy in Alberta who might lose his job. If the people who are making tremendous profit off of this, ruining our environment, ruining the environment in Alberta, if they're not willing to pay for some of this, they don't care about that guy and his job, or that woman and her job. And when they try to make it about the oil worker's job against all of us lefties in Toronto, that's where they're sort of winning the argument, I think. But this puts the blame where it belongs. It puts the people that need to pay front and center, the people who are making obscene amounts of money while ruining our futures. So, like I said, half of this is just going off the top of my head. But I thought that that's an important point to make today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Okay, thank you for coming in from Scarborough. Questions for staff? Seeing none. Speakers, do you want to speak first, last?
I can speak, and I'll be very brief. Oh.
Questions for staff? Okay. Questions, Lou? Questions for staff?
Through you, Madam Chair. So I think that would be the basis of the report that we'd ask legal to look at, to say, you know, how far out do you go with what the legal avenues and who you're going after. Right now, the motion is specifically referencing us looking at other litigations and who do you go. That's what we'd be reporting back on. What are the avenues you can follow legally? What have other municipalities attempted? So I don't think we can single out any individual one right now. We'd report back on that.
Given the importance of the automotive industry to the economy in the province of Ontario and the City of Toronto, would the Economic Development Department weigh in on the implications of taking legal action against one of our most important industries in the province?
Through you, Madam Chair, if you want us to look at that as part of a report back on the implications, we could include them in the working group. It does say in the motion that other city staff has deemed appropriate, but if you want a holistic review, not just about proceeding with legal, what are the implications economically as well, we can include that two-sided review as well.
Will you take that as a direction, or do you need that as a motion?
We could take that as direction and have a discussion with the city solicitor's office about all of the aspects of the report back, not just the litigation, but also the economic implications.
Great.
And we'll reach out to the General Manager of Economic Development and Culture.
Okay, thank you.
Sir Layton?
Yes, thank you. Just to speak very quickly, I'd like to thank the deputants for coming down today. In particular, I'd like to thank Astaire for giving us some of the legal background and the legal perspective of around this. I'd also like to thank Aviva for giving us the youth perspective. That seems to me to be driving most of my interest in and renewed energy to doing just absolutely everything we can as a city. You know, I left. It was probably a little bit later than when Aviva mentioned she learned about climate change and sort of got the fear in her. I was a couple years older than her when that lesson was first instilled with me, and it stuck with me. It stuck with me so much that that's what I went and studied in school. That was driving a lot of my work prior to being a city councillor. But it had kind of gotten to a point that it was just kind of the white noise in the background, that, yeah, we had to do something about climate change, this mounting problem. The weight of it all became so abstract. And then that all changed when I had kids and started realizing that this theory of 7 generations that the First Nations used to describe our role and responsibility to the natural environment, we were actually running out of time, because if you think about 7 generations from my little girls, the world is going to be the climate of the world is going to be such a dramatically different thing that really there's, if we don't do all we can now, we shouldn't, there's really no point in thinking 7 generations out, because we might not even get there. And that's a really frightening thing to think about, that we were part of the generation that couldn't even think that far ahead. And so it started making me just look at where is every place we can possibly make those moves. And not just as a city councillor, we do what we can in our own lives and our own decisions that we make, and that is obviously part of the solution. And I don't mean for this to in any way diminish the personal responsibility that each of us have. But there is also a responsibility for every level of government and every company that is involved in helping fuel the consumption that we have in the production of greenhouse gases. All of us are going to be part of that solution, every actor. The motion put forward is one, and I think most importantly, let's have a better understanding of the cost implications, because we have a $40 billion unfunded capital budget. And we know there are more costs coming. So who is going to pay for that in the end? And I tell you, it's going to be all of us. We heard that. But we've got to make sure that those that are profiting and have historically profited off it pay their fair share. That's not to suggest that anyone is getting let off the hook, but that everyone needs to contribute. Now, the other side of this is, and a motion will come to this, is about partnerships. I agree. Like that is part of the solution too, because that's part of the path forward. But for decades and decades, an industry, and it was said, this manufactured doubt, there's been an industry that has been made out of trying to blur the line between greenhouse gases, fossil fuels, and climate change. Much like they tried to blur the line between cancer and smoking. And I know it's a leap, but it's a leap that other municipalities are taking. And I think Toronto, in order for me to be able to go and tell my kids I did everything that I possibly could to fight climate change as a city councillor, and I think and I hope that many of you feel that same way, this is a leap that we need to take as well. Thank you.
Councillor Lane, anybody else speak? I have an amendment as well. Did you want to speak first, or you want to see the amendment? Yeah, I'm going to put an amendment. So should I just, I'll put it up now, and then maybe, do you want to speak after that?
Yeah, I'm good either way.
Okay, well, go ahead then.
And I'll tell you why I'm good either way, because I think it's important to keep this conversation alive. I'm generally not one to sort of like the notion of asking for frivolous reports, just simply sort of to get our staff to go away and do a lot of work, a lot of thinking, spend hours and hours and hours, and then they come back and then you know, sort of they sit around and no action is ever taken on them. I think that this is a conversation that needs to continue to happen. I understand that to some degree it'll get bogged down in the, as my good friends here suggest, in the details. What does it mean in terms of economic impact? What does it mean in terms of jobs? What does it mean in terms of, all of these other things that are always top of mind for many of us. But you know what? Climate change is real. I believe it's real. In listening to my good friend Councillor Cole talk about Hurricane Hazel and the outcomes of Hurricane Hazel and when Hurricane Hazel happened and the creation of the conservation authorities as a result of that, and now we see what the government is doing in relation to those conservation authorities whose job it was to, or it is to, mitigate and deal with issues of flooding and those kinds of things. But you know what? We look at it in a historical context. If you're a religious person, you'll believe in the flood that for 40 days and 40 nights when it all went it washed up in water. But going forward, there was one of the presenters. I forget her. It may have been Patience or someone else. She said something. She said, "If you think about it, you're afraid to live." In terms of what the implications for climate change are. So have extreme weather events always been with us? I suspect that they have in one shape or another. But collectively now, they're very much connected to, what we're doing to the planet. So it's good to get the report back. It's good to continue to have this conversation. And if at the end of the day, it can, sort of the implications and the polluters and those people that are impacting climate change are, there's a way for them to be able to contribute to some of the solutions around reversing some of those effects or slowing them down. Then that, I think, is an important conversation to have. So whatever the amendment may or may not be, I suspect I'll support the amendment as well, just as long as it keeps the conversation going, because it's one that we need to have. And lastly, I'd like to thank really all of the people that took the time to come here before us today. And to speak on the subject, because it is important whether you work in the field or not. And being the councillor for Osgoode Hall, and it's good to see Esther here speaking to the committee. And I don't know if she lives in the neighborhood or not, but she works there. So a special welcome to her. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Cole.
Yeah, just to speak in favor of the motion, the critical thing here is that we get information and we start to quantify some of these cost impacts that are going to be there. And as I think Councillor Minnan Wong has mentioned before about the capital backlog for our road infrastructure. 85% of our roads, I think, are substandards. 85% of Toronto's roads need to be repaired, need to be rebuilt, and on top of that, we've got all this other infrastructure that needs serious investments. $40 billion, bridges, roads, sewers that need repair, rebuild. So even if you don't believe in, as Hamish said, climate breakdown, you've got to believe in these costs that we're facing and our children and grandchildren are going to face in terms of making sure infrastructure could withstand these climate events. And therefore, like we can say to some people say, well, we don't really have to do it. It's not really going to happen. But as a government, city government, we can't take that chance of saying, well, let's keep our fingers crossed and maybe this is just a blip. We can't do that. To be responsible, we have to say, what are the potential costs? What are the impacts? And do a thorough analysis of the impacts of these expenditures and as they relate to these changes in climate. We have that responsibility to do it. And so that's what this motion really does. Let's try to quantify that. And so even if you don't believe in the litigation part of it, you've got to believe in the fact the city's got to do its due diligence. We have no choice there. And I'm glad that this begins to quantify and puts the dollar amounts to the potential cost. And like some of the presenters have said, the other thing about this is we're already paying for it. You know, the Insurance Bureau of Canada says $4 billion cost, $4 billion. You're paying your insurance and say, well, and people always had that old adage, well, the insurance company will pay. You are the insurance company. You pay for it in your premiums. You know, it's a pool. It's a risk pool. So you're eventually going to pay for it. So it's not as if those insurance companies are going to pay for your flooded basements and remediation. No, you are paying. So we're already paying billions of dollars as a result of all these extreme climate events. And then on top of it, we've got this bill in terms of as our deputy city manager knows, we're putting in huge storm and sewer work in Midtown, a $150 million project to stop flooded basements in the middle of Toronto. That's just one small part of Toronto. Never mind the flooded basements down on Shaw Street or the flooded basements in the Humber Valley. That's just one small piece, $150 million. And that's going to take basically 5 years of work. These things, sewers don't get built overnight. Big money, big cost. So there is a reality here. And the reality of this motion is that the Toronto taxpayers are going to pay much more so unless we start to account for cost and see maybe there are ways of engaging a partnership with our friends in the big oil industries. Maybe they'll come to their senses. And I just want to close on a very historical note again, and that is late night I listened to Theater of the Mind, it's called. They fill airtime on Chin Radio, and they put on these shows from the 50s and the 40s. And Dragnet is one show they put on. And that was a big, big detective show. Anyways, in the middle of, and the and the advertiser for Dragnet was a cigarette company, Chesterfield. Okay, so they were advertised. Joe Friday was, and Joe Friday's talking on the commercial in between segments, and he's saying, and by the way, folks, you've heard that tobacco is harmful to your health. Well, that's not true. Don't believe it, because 100 of our doctors have done a thorough investigation, issued a report where they are certain that cigarettes do not have any effect on your health. So you can smoke all you want. So this is just the other night I'm listening to this. This is from the 1950 thing. So
thank you.
That goes. Sorry to digress into Dragnet.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Anyone else? Or, okay.
I have a motion. Staff conduct all research internally and without engaging any outside legal counsel or outside consultants. The reason for that is, well, firstly, let me say that I asked staff to prepare and do some research on how many times we've reported back on climate change. 93 times. Report after report after report after report after report after report after report. I don't think we need another report. But this will probably pass, and I suspect there's going to be a lot of cutting and pasting to satisfy the motion of the councillor across the aisle. And so that's what we will do, and come back here with another report. So, but I'm not really keen on having that report done. I do have a concern about chasing legal avenues, and I have a concern with regard to the costs. And I hope that if other municipalities want to pursue this using legal avenues, God bless them. They can do our work if they wish. Especially, I believe that we shouldn't be spending a lot of money on this, especially within the context when I hear many councillors complain recently about not having enough money and downloading, and we're going to go off and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to hire lawyers or consultants or all these other things, when other people are doing that work for us. If the councillor wants that to happen, let them do it, and let's take the money, the few dollars that we have, and spend it on the things that we need.
Could I just ask a question of the mover? Yep. Just with the language, the way it's written, would that preclude any coordination with any of the work being done in the U.S., even if it's at no cost?
As long as we use, well, firstly, we're going to get a report back. Madam Chair, I think we're going to get a report back and move on from there. That discussion is probably for another day, but, my guess is for now that, we're not going to hire, if somebody else wants to, if, for example, someone in the environmental office or whatever office there is in here that does all that type of stuff wants to call someone else up from another city or another municipality or another NGO, that's fine, just as long as we're not expending anything other than city staff time.
Perhaps I could suggest that as a friendly amendment, changing the word engaging to contracting.
That's fine.
Is that okay?
Staff.
That seems like a fun.
But if you're going to cut and paste, what do you need that motion for?
Wait a second. I'm happy to work with the councillor, but I can't do two conversations at once. What are you suggesting?
That we change the word engaging any outside counsel or outside consultants to contracting any outside. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Thank you. So I have an amendment also. Can you put up? I'll speak to the second one first. It's just a minor friendly change to Councillor Layton's original motion to include the Director, Energy and Environment, and instead this is now coming from the Infrastructure and Environment Committee instead of City Council. So that's the item 2. The first one is that the City Manager and appropriate staff review partnership models between oil and gas companies and other cities internationally, including those in Europe that are being used to combat climate change, and report back at the same time. And so this is not to take away in any way from Councillor Layton's motion. It's an additional direction to also look at partnership models. I think the City of Toronto has an obligation to be a leader in combating climate change, and we have a responsibility to do that. Councillor Layton's motion speaks to the adaptation side of it, and I really would like to thank and commend him for his leadership in this area and being very bold in putting this forward. And there's 2 things that we will gain that are incredibly valuable, and the first is the full cost of adaptation measures on our infrastructure, and what is the full cost of climate change. And I don't think we have that number, even out of the 95 reports that Councillor Min Wong brought forward. I don't think we have that number and that value, and I think that we need that number so that we can make decisions and we can plan for our future. The second reason why I appreciate Councillor Layton's motion is that I think Priyanka Vital, the first deputant, really hit it on the head when she said we need to explore options for accountability. And this doesn't necessarily say through his report that that is litigation, but it is an avenue, and we should be looking at what others are doing, and in particular, what did they learn through the discovery process, because that can inform us and it can inform our next steps. So I think there's a lot of value in the report that Councillor Layton is seeking. The rationale for my amendment, or the second part, is to also look at partnership, and that's because especially in terms of mitigation and decreasing emissions, there's huge potential to work with the oil and gas companies because they are reaching peak oil, and we know that. We're now at a point where we're going to the oil sands, we're going to fracking. It has become much more intensive to get oil and gas. It's not the days of you drill a well, you turn on a tap, and the liquid gold, liquid oil starts flowing, and we all get rich like the Beverly Hillbillies. Those days are done. And I think there are a lot of smart scientists that work in some of these oil and gas companies, and we need to use their knowledge so that we can move on to renewables and we can move on to biofuels. And there are cities in Europe, in particular, the city of Turin, I know is working with the oil and gas company Eni and Turin Polytechnique, and I don't know the nature of that agreement or how it's working or how effective it's been, but I think it's something that we should look at as well going forward. So that's why I've brought forward this amendment. I think both parts are important so that we can tackle both adaptation and mitigation. Thank you. So we can vote on, do you want to vote on each amendment? Okay. So the first amendment, Councillor Min Wang's amendment. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. Second, my amendment, so to Councillor Layton's and also to look at partnerships. All those in favor? All those opposed? And then the item as amended? All those in favor? Great, thank you.
I maybe dispose of, the Councillor Pasternak had a motion, had a new item.
Yep.
I'd like just to refer, it's fairly complicated. I'd just like to refer it to staff.
There's an amendment on it to refer to
Oh.
staff. Yeah.
Okay, well then,
Sorry, it's a referral with a report back in May.
Yeah.
it's fine. Good, do it, move it.
Yeah. Okay, then I'll move the item.
Okay, so we'll move, do you want to pull the amendment up? So,
That the item be referred to General Manager, Solid Waste Management Services with the report.
We're thinking alike.
Request a report. I know, strange, is it?
Frightening. Maybe I
Frightening.
and just to clarify, that's on all three, so all three parts would be moved?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm told by the General Manager of Solid Waste Management, but that there's no rush to move, particularly item 3 along, because there would still be many months until we would issue an RFP if we chose to go that direction. And I think I think this is a reminder that when we're intervening in such a significant way with a contract that involves tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars potentially, that it's a good practice to go and talk to staff. I know I might not always practice it myself, so I will remember that. Don't laugh. I will remember that in the future, but it certainly is a good reminder that it's important to talk to staff about motions of this significance.
Okay.
And submitting them before the morning of the committee.
So we need to vote on that. So all those in favor? Okay, all those opposed? Okay, that item carries. So we have item 4.5. We also have item 4.3, which we held because Councillor Perut said they weren't sure if you wanted to hold it or move it, or because I think it had implications for your ward.
The Finch West, what is it, which one is 3?
4.3 is the Finch West Light Rail.
You know what, I have a question for the staff on that. Well,
Okay,
is there anybody here that wants to speak to it?
there's people that want to speak on item 4.5, so
Get rid of this one.
can your question be fast?
My question is very fast.
Okay, go.
Quick. So while it's listed as Ward 1, or rather, sorry, Ward 3, and my ward is 7, but there's this clause number 3 that's giving me a little, it's a sentence, it's a paragraph, but it's like an entire sentence, and I've reread it now a number of times, and I just wanted to know what it says. Oh, sorry.
You have to guess the sentence, Ed?
City count, no, number 3, I said number 3. Sorry, the recommendation number 3.
So through the chair. So recommendation 3 essentially seeks to extend the General Manager of Transportation's delegated authority to close sections of road relating to Finch West LRT construction for up to and including 365 consecutive days. Our current delegated authority for roads elsewhere only extends to 30 days. You'll recall that we brought a report to Council which was approved, which gave us this delegated authority both for Eglinton LRT project and for Finch LRT project. The one for Finch only asked for the delegated authority through to 2020. We now have a clearer understanding of the construction programme for the Finch West LRT project, so we're going to need that delegated authority through till 2023.
Okay.
So that's what recommendation 3 seeks.
So while recommendation 1 relates to Ward 3 specifically, recommendation 3 would apply to the entire project, the entire...
Through the chair, that's correct, Councillor.
Okay. So basically, now the councillors are not... So if, for example, there's a major road closure or there's a major change in traffic pattern, if we approve it this way, you neither have an obligation to let us know and to tell us, and essentially we no longer have the capacity to bring that issue, to require a report come to council on that issue. So you're taking away both those functions from us until 2023.
So through the chair, the second element is correct. The first element, there is always engagement and consultation with the local councillor. The local councillor will always be fully aware of any closures which are proposed within their ward.
Okay. So would you be comfortable if, for example, we said that you continue to consult and that the reporting requirement be not be or that be changed, and so that because I'll tell you what makes me nervous about this. It's not about, and I understand the Metrolinx, the province. So we never had this with respect to the TTC or any of the other projects undertaken by the City of Toronto. Why? Because we've never been afraid of it. Right? So if the TTC, for example, was building a subway, we never suspended any kind of information flow to the city councillors. And now I understand why the province wants basically the local councillors or representatives to be completely left in the dark and out of the loop. I get that. And I understand you're going to tell me again that we would consult with the councillor. But it's one thing if you're narrowing Finch to one lane and shifting things around. It's another thing when you do the major things, and all of a sudden you have this huge proliferation of traffic in the neighborhood, and now you've left the local community, because leaving the councillor out of that loop, that means you don't longer have to respond to anybody. So Metrolinx, for example, can dump traffic and construction trucks and anything it wants on the local neighborhood, and we're left completely out of the loop. And until 2023, that makes me really nervous, right? Like why you would be coming here asking for this, or why they would be coming here asking for this. We never gave the TTC any grief on any of the other projects, right?
So if I may respond through the chair to those points and that question. So to be clear, this relates to, it's essentially, this needs to be worded as it is because it relates to a procedural component of city bylaws, section 9375. So those components are lumped together within that bylaw. So to amend that, it needs to be left as it is whole. Having said,
so what change would we need to make to basically have you folks, whenever they come in for a permit, because you're not letting them off the hook on the permits.
Absolutely not.
Exactly. So they got to come into you for the permits. So how do we make sure that when they do come in to see you for the permits, that you keep the local councillors informed of the changes? Because this impacts like 2 or 3 of us, not just me, right?
So through the chair, the second part of the answer that I was...
Well, there was a short question. Sorry?
So the second part of the answer that I was about to give, so in terms of the procedures which we have set up, we do currently engage with the councillor, so they are aware of any proposed closures and traffic management plans which are proposed as part of Eglinton work, and the same will be the case for Finch. Whilst legally we can't amend recommendation 3, what we could do, we could have a separate recommendation, you could put forward a motion so that staff consult with and inform the local councillor of any proposed road closures coming forward.
So I'd like to move that, add that as a third, as a recommendation then.
Okay, so I've been instructed, can we pause on this item while you work on the motion with staff? And then that way we can carry on with item 5.5 because there are people waiting. So you can work on this in the meantime?
Sure.
Okay, great. Yeah. So we'll move on to item 4.5 in the meantime while that motion is being prepared. So we have deputations. So our first speaker is Janelle Lee. Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Janelle Lee, and I'm an analyst with the Pembina Institute, a nonpartisan clean energy think tank. Thank you for providing the opportunity to speak on the motion for a proposed regulatory framework for scooters, cargo cycles, and e-assist cycles. I'm here today because our main priority is to support evidence-based policies and practical solutions that reduce transportation emissions and tackling climate change. We have worked extensively on pathways to reduce pollution in the urban freight sector, with a particular focus on the role that cargo cycles will play. Through our research, we have found that cargo cycles are one solution to reduce freight emissions and to improve the efficiency of delivery operations for businesses. Businesses are increasingly interested in incorporating or testing cargo cycles in their delivery operations. However, we also know that one of the main barriers preventing their use of cargo cycles is that existing regulations are unclear or they restrict the use of certain types of e-assist cargo cycles. We support this motion because it will be an opportunity to provide the regulatory clarity that businesses are seeking in order to integrate and test cargo cycles in their delivery operations, while also ensuring the safety of all road users. Freight activity is a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. By 2030, it is expected that freight emissions in Canada will exceed passenger emissions. As e-commerce activity and the demand for same-day and home deliveries increases, it is likely that more freight vehicles will be on the road, contributing to increased emissions. Canadians will continue to shop online in greater numbers, with sales in Canada to reach almost $56 billion by 2020. So why does this matter? A large number of freight vehicles on the road puts pressure on Toronto's transportation networks as more delivery vans and trucks compete for the same space as motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians. The result is increased traffic congestion, noise on our streets, and increased air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. This is not only problematic for residents, but also for local businesses. Businesses spend approximately 28% of their total costs on conducting last-mile deliveries due to increasing traffic congestion, a lack of loading zones, and other inefficiencies. One way to address the challenges posed by increased urban freight activity is to use cargo cycles for commercial goods movement. Cargo cycles are equipped with a cargo unit to store and move goods and may be 2, 3, or sometimes 4 wheels. As you can see in the overhead, and I think in the attached handout, cargo cycles may also be pedal-powered or have some form of e-assist function. Many businesses in North American and European cities are piloting and deploying cargo cycles for goods movement, not only because they can be more efficient than conventional delivery methods, but because industry also wants to be part of the solution in reducing our carbon footprint. Some businesses in Toronto are currently using or are interested in testing cargo cycles for goods movement. However, some businesses are hesitant to do so, one reason being that existing regulations are unclear or they restrict the use of certain types of e-assist cargo cycles. It is understandable that businesses are hesitant to test or invest in new delivery methods if they are unsure whether these methods will comply with the law. There are 2 reasons why the time is right to pass this motion and to undertake a review of existing regulations. First, supporting the use of cargo cycles aligns with and supports the city's climate goals, including greenhouse gas emission reduction targets and improving curbside management, as set out in the city's already approved Transform TO and the curbside management strategy. Second, Transport Canada at the federal level is proposing amendments to the federal motor vehicle safety regulations to remove the definitions of power-assisted bicycles and scooters. To respond to the proposed changes, the Ontario Ministry of Transportation is considering updating their Highway Traffic Act provisions pertaining to e-bikes and electric scooters. If we wish to support businesses in adopting and testing innovative delivery solutions, and if we are striving to reduce emissions, resolve curbside competition, and address traffic congestion, then we need policies to support alternative ways of moving goods in Toronto. Passing this motion will be a good first step to help businesses integrate cargo cycles into their delivery operations and to manage the rapid growth of urban freight in our communities. Thanks.
Any questions for the deputant? Okay. Thank you. Our next deputant is Jared Kolb.
Great. Thanks. Hey, everybody. Hey. Councillor McKelvey, members of the committee, my name is Jared Kolb. I am Executive Director of Cycle Toronto. Cycle Toronto, of course, is the city's big bike advocacy organization. We represent about 3,000 Torontonians. I think I really just want to come to chat a little bit about who should be allowed to use Toronto's bike lanes. Thanks, Councillor Layton, for bringing this issue forward. It's a really important one as we're seeing the rise in a whole slew of new transportation options on our streets. And so I think it's really prudent for the City of Toronto to get the policy environment correct. There are, as I said, a large number of road users that are out there. And, I think on the one hand, we could go down the road of having bicycle lanes, skateboard lanes, wheelchair lanes, rollerblade lanes. I think it's far more prudent, though, to create a framework where there's a variety of road users who all, I think reasonably have what we need to think about is max speeds, weights, class of vehicles, and one of them is skateboard users. I think we've got a lot of them in the city, and so Cycle Toronto, again, with thinking about in the context of a max speed of about 25 kilometers an hour, we support skateboards and e-skateboard users using Toronto's bike lanes. We also really support, mobility devices like electric wheelchairs. Our population is aging. More and more people are using, wheeled devices to get around in the city, and that includes electric wheelchairs. We really believe that Toronto's cycle tracks, bike lanes, and trails are the place where, this should be an option for mobility users. I haven't used rollerblades since I was a kid. I've seen Councillor Cole out, I think, a few times, yeah, with roller skates. But I think this is another road user group that really should be welcomed and invited into Toronto's cycle tracks and bike lanes and trails. Cargo bikes. In the current policy environment, electric assist cargo bikes actually are prohibited from using Toronto's bike lanes because of their weight in particular. And that's something we think needs to change. There's a little diaper bike in the corner there as well. That's mine. It's not actually a cargo bike, but that's my daughter Raina and I, and we'll soon be the owner of a cargo bike. We certainly want to be able to use Toronto's bike lanes. At any rate, cargo bikes, we certainly would agree with the Pembina Institute that we believe that cargo bikes really need to be embraced as a mobility option for business and for families in the city. And this is a new one, the kick-style electric scooter. Some of you may be surprised to learn, but there are companies south of the border, Bird, for instance, Lime, with valuations in the multi-billions, who are expanding across American cities. And currently, there's no place for kick-style electric scooters to ride. Again, we believe that the right place is in Toronto's bike lanes, and we again welcome them into Toronto's bike lanes. Who do we not support? From our view, because of their weight their speed, and their size, we don't believe that the moped-style electric scooters should use Toronto's bicycle lanes, trails, and cycle tracks. It is currently legal for electric scooters to use Toronto's bicycle lanes, our painted bicycle lanes. We don't agree, and we think that ultimately right now they're limited to 32 kilometers an hour. We think that should be removed, and this has some ramifications at the provincial level, but that moped-style e-bikes really should actually require an M-class license and have a higher threshold for speed. At any rate, that's our view on this issue, and we look forward to continuing to participate in the conversation.
Thank you. Any questions for the deputant? Okay. Thank you for coming in. Thanks. Our next deputant is Hamish Wilson. Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Yep, thank you. This is a pretty good effort. Thank you very much for working away at it, because we do need to share the lanes, and I'm very happy to share the bike lanes with a whole wide range of alternative mobilities, except for those heavier moped-style e-bikes. I echo Jared's worry about them being too heavy. The speed should be reduced. The driver training should be better. I think the fault lies at the federal level, where the Harper government, amongst many other things, just approved a blanket e-bike thing. The European standards are more stringent. That's what you should be working towards. So basically, yeah, and maybe, yeah, time to relabel a campaign, the wheelchair lanes on Bloor campaign. Maybe that'll actually spur us to actually do something that's also subway relief for the price of paint. Please, it's overdue. So yes, let's go ahead and do this. In terms of road efficiency, I'm sorry I didn't bring down the actual color version from a spacing mag. If we actually look at how efficiently lanes can move people, the single occupant vehicle tends to be the worst. And you know, we've got the trucks and the vehicles, the larger vehicles that take up a lot of space, along with Uber and Lyft, et cetera. So the bike lanes are good. The trouble is, quite honestly, we have, if we were doing the study of how to tweak our lanes, we also should improve the network. This is the core, these are the gaps. I'd love to see a list of where, you know, official list of where the gaps are. I think there's also the hazards of the streetcar tracks. And also, now that we've ditched the 2001 bike plan, out in Scarborough, there was a whole network proposed for on-road bike lanes, and it's a shame that we didn't actually do much of those, even though the off-road was costlier to do. That's what got done as opposed to the on-road. So concurrent with your interest in actually studying how we change the bike lanes and accommodate the alternative mobilities, you've also got to, you know, get back to the basics of doing the stuff in Scarborough along with the rest of the city. And it's really cheap to do this stuff. You know, only 25,000. Paint is a good place to start. It doesn't always have to be separated. So go ahead and do this, please, but keep tweaking.
Sorry, Darnell Harris? You have 5 minutes.
That we should have, I believe I've shown this chart to the committee in its last session. Ultimately, people walking move a lot differently than a range of people on low-speed wheeled mobility, and when it comes to people driving, their speeds radically increase. So frankly, it makes sense simply to put all relevant speeds together. You know, in terms of things, while we usually talk about cyclists here, what we usually end up talking about are, you know, two-wheeled bikes, can't carry a lot, aren't very effective in terms of carrying a large range of things. However, what we should be instead talking about, frankly, is the large range of devices that people can use, including the 3-4 ones can carry half a ton, 660 pounds. And certainly I know most businesses don't put 660 pounds at any time into their trucks. So definitely this is not just about you know, the environment, although that's very important. This is about practical business needs and saving money as well as saving time. So, you know, in terms of the letter that I put forward to the committee, we're requesting that the motion not just look at the things that have been suggested, but a slightly wider piece of the devices that, as has been mentioned, should be in fact in the lane. Why is that? Well, for example, I think you'll know who this is, Anthony. This gentleman is James. Mobility wheelchairs, I'm sure, have been seen are in many of our communities across the city. As our communities age, there'll be many more of them, and the best and most appropriate place for these things is in fact in a lane that's not the sidewalk and not the road. I was on Jane not too long ago when it was still very snowy and saw someone on a mobility scooter struggling to get past a family walking. There's no need for this. We have the space and we have ways of managing these issues, and it makes sense to use our infrastructure most cost effectively. You know, other reasons, for example, the city just adopted the butterfly model of emotion-focused care. This is cycling without age. It is a program that exists now in Ontario to get seniors out. And using e-bikes and e-assist bikes is a key part of some of the successes they've had with the butterfly model in other ways, because ultimately it keeps seniors active in their community. Last but not least, you know, last time I was before this committee, I remember Councillor Mamaliti at the time saying that, you know, people don't like looking at other people's laundry. And he's completely correct. They don't. That's why cargo bikes like this one, for example, make a lot of sense. They can move more than half a ton, are fully enclosed for, you know, sort of for all weather conditions and situations, but can still fit in bike infrastructure, if one wants to call it that, while serving practical needs. So, you know, although it looks big, frankly, it's not that big, but it can fit in a lane. But this is ultimately the sort of device that, you know, well-noted companies like UPS and DHL are using and would like to use in urban centers because they take up much less space and are much less costly than a car. So, thank you very much for your time, and I see back to the chair.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the deputant? Okay, thank you for coming in. Any questions for staff? Speakers?
I do have a couple of questions for staff. In terms of, here's my, I guess my worry when we talk about regulation and further regulations. I don't want to see a regime where people who want to ride a bike having to come in and get a license plate for it, or you know, I don't know, having to come in and taking a driver course or some other you know, onerous you know, thing that we require, you know, you know, drivers of cars and motorcycles and things like that to do. I mean, you know, a bicycle, you learn how to ride a bike, buy yourself a helmet and go ride a bike, right? So when we move in this area, how do we avoid that? How do we avoid that slippery slope where instead of actually encouraging more users, making it more difficult for people to get to be able to ride a bike freely in the City of Toronto?
Through the chair, I think I would read the request of this report back about a regulatory framework is really about the type of bicycles or other similar micro-mobility devices that are allowed within the city's bike lanes or other sidewalks or multi-use trails in which the city has jurisdictional authority. And that's important to note because this, in some sense, us being able to confirm any regulatory framework on this issue is somewhat premature because some of the vehicles that are identified in this motion and in the discussion from some of the deputants, like those e-scooters where it's like a kick stand-up scooter, those are not legal in the province of Ontario on city roads, and it's up the city and they're not legal on our sidewalks. So we need some direction from the province on that issue before we can really confirm a regulatory framework.
So in other words, you would, if we basically approve what's before us, you take that as being able to go off and just look at what you're going to be looking at is the bicycle lanes and what can be allowed on those bicycle lanes and what those things look like in terms of speed, in terms of weight, in terms of that kind of thing, and not and it doesn't go beyond that in any way.
Through the chair, that's how I would read the request, and we would also, as I said, have to sort of leave it in sort of pending for some of these changes from the province that we expect may take place.
Okay, thank you.
Speakers, we'll move to a vote. Oh, speakers? Okay.
Sorry, I'll just speak very briefly. This is a motion we put forward after several conversations with folks from Pembina, folks trying to work with industry to do a shift towards more active transportation options for last mile cargo. And at the same time, the conversations we were having with industry around electric scooters. These are coming. Like, they're going to come one way or another. This would be like, if we voted against this, it would be kind of like a year before Uber coming, saying, no, let's not bother looking at a regulatory regime for a technology disruptor like Uber. And we see how that debate went. A couple of you weren't there. It was not fun. This was not a good and healthy debate. We were kind of forced into it. Putting this forward, I put them together because I think they occupy some same policy space. And my hope is that not only will staff come back with a reevaluation of how we work our definitions about bikeways and bike lanes, or cycle tracks and bike lanes, but also with a proposed regulatory framework for electric vehicles that occupy the space of the sort of shared economy. Because we know they're coming. Uber has a brand that won in Toronto. This Lime bike or Lime scooter, if they haven't been in to see you, they will be soon. There's another major player operates a brand. If you go to cities in the U.S. And elsewhere, like, these things are all over the streets. Whether or not it's a good thing or bad thing, and how they store them, and how they operate their regulatory regime is a debate for another time. I'm a firm believer that we already are in the space with our bicycle share system, that we should just purchase technologies and expand that system. I know that many of you wouldn't, I don't think any of you have areas with bike share, but siting the facilities is incredibly difficult and complex. So if you just add 2 or 3 other people to the space that all of a sudden are leaving scooters and electric bikes and all this stuff in the public right-of-way, like, we're going to have chaos if we don't get out ahead of it with some kind of regulatory regime for it. So that was the reason why I put that forward. And then the other side is I actually own a cargo bike. It's not an electric-assisted cargo bike. But with the weight restriction, it's questionable whether or not I should be in the bike lane with my kids. And, like, it's a pretty harmless little cargo bike, but we probably all together in the frame get up there and wait. So I think it would be really, we need to take a second look at this. When we made the regulations a couple years ago around weight, I think we may have made some mistakes. And as things progress, sometimes you need to take another look at things. I think it's about that time. The reason why, we didn't want to expand it because there was some requests for changing what we were defining. I'm hopeful that the city staff will look at mobility devices and the other devices listed as part of their examination. We wanted to make very clear what we were looking for, and so I'm hopeful they mix that in, because I see with Darnell's presentation, I do see the need for us to open up that conversation, and I hope by way of me saying that here, staff feel compelled to at least make mention of it in their work. Or it'll come up in the consultation and it'll be able to be included.
Okay, thank you. Any additional speakers? Councillor Perruzza?
Yeah, I'm there's a, Darnell Harris proposed an amendment which makes sense, and I don't think the staff have a problem with it. And actually also reporting back on looking at road design and how that works as it relates to these things, you know, turn radiuses and what have you. So I'm happy to move that. The staff haven't had the time to work it, but it's on the screen. And I've chatted with the staff. They seem to be okay with it. So I'm happy to add that as a friendly amendment to the motion that's before us.
Sorry, I'm reading it.
Yeah, I can read it out, but that's kind of like a little fuzzy out there, right? Really what you're just adding is that safe road design and intersection requirements, whatever, speed, wheel modes under 25 kilometers an hour. Basically what you're saying is, I guess what it's looking at is if you're going to look at these things, make sure that the lanes that you're putting them on, the roads that you're putting them on, are also going to be able to accommodate the different sizes or the different speeds as well. So I think it should be fine. I think our roads are built that way anyways, but it's prudent to look at it. It kind of makes sense.
I just wanted to know, are you okay with removing smaller emergency vehicles? Because it kind of changes the scope to beyond personal transportation.
Smaller emergency vehicles, yeah, he's going beyond, oh, sure.
Okay, yeah. Great. Anything else? Good. Okay, so we can vote on Councillor Perruzza's amendment. All those in favor?
Sure.
Okay, and that's it. Good. Okay, back to item 4.3. There were no additional questions, and Councillor Perruzza has a motion.
I have a motion on that. Maybe we can put that on the screen, or I can read it. That City Council Director General Manager Transportation to ensure that affected councillors are consulted on proposed lane closures. It's just. I don't know, it doesn't do a heck of a lot, but at least it gives us some assurance that they're going to talk to us. And if they don't talk to us, I'm going to head over to his office there and yeah, okay, I'm happy to add that.
Okay. Great, so we'll call a vote on the amendment. Woohoo!
Hey guys, we're voting.
Yeah, voting on Councillor Perruzza's amendment. All those in favor? And then voting on the motion, the item as amended. All those in favor? And we are adjourned. That's it. Great. Thank you. Thank you. You made that painless. Yeah.